Big goals, big dreams, big fish. What's next for Nick Leddy? I'll talk to you more about him coming up here on Locked on Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked on Blues. I am your host of Locked on Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today on Locked on Blues, I'm going to talk about big fish, big goals, big dreams, Nick Leddy. The NHL did us so dirty today, and honestly, I'm not over it. And of course, my favorite Friday segment, Are We Feeling Blue? We do have a lot to get into on today's episode. Kind of a fun Friday episode, I would say. But before I do that, I just want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone. Every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Big fish, big goals. What's next for Nick Leddy? It's probably one of the most summer segments I could ever come up with doing this podcast, but I thought about it. Nick Leddy went on a fishing trip, and I'm going to talk to you in detail actually about that trip because it's kind of fascinating. I know a bunch of you like to fish, but there's a way that I'm going to twist it into how I expect him to do this season. So let's discuss, okay? So, and I want to say that all of this information I got on this fishing trip is from Fox to Now. So I just want you all to know that I'm giving my credits out to Joey Schneider, who wrote this post. The St. Louis Blues defenseman Nick Leddy and his father enjoyed a lifetime fishing experience during their off-season trip up north Canada, catching multiple 10-foot fish from the Fraser River, which is, again, big fish, huge fish. Nick and his father, Mike, ended up with huge monster-sized fish, not once, not twice, but 3 times during their recent adventure, and it is actually insane. So they actually do this every year, Nick and his father, Mike, and it is such a cool tradition that they have. I guess they just like fishing. I don't know. Like, I guess the biggest fish they ever got was like 11 feet, so huge. But I guess this Fraser River just has really big fish. And this is a quote. Nick's third fish was over 10 fork length, unexplainable to those that don't know, like me. The odds of not only a guest getting a lifetime fish, but the same guest getting multiple different lifetime fish, wild, said Sturgeon Slayers, who is the boating company that took them out, I guess. Again, I don't know much about fishing, but I do think this is a cool story. So this also is a strictly catch and release fishery that supports research and basically just taking people out fishing. So that's all it is. Leddy did this with his former teammate, Andrew Ladd of the New York Islanders, but these fish are huge. And if I had the copyright to these photos, I would 100% show you. I can't because I don't have that, but I really want you to Google these fish. Honestly, I am terrified. Like, I never thought I'd be afraid of fish, and I'm looking at these photos, and I'm like, if I was in the water and that fish came up to me, I would end up passing out. Like, I'm going to be honest. So, good for Nick Leddy. But as the big fish that he catches, he also needs to have big performances on ice. See that segue? That's podcasting 101, baby. But Nick Leddy, oh man, I think about him a lot, and he's a player that I don't think I talked enough about on this podcast of Locked on Blues. And it's not because he's a bad player. It's not because he's a great player. I think it's just because he blends in, which is fine. You know, he's 33 years old. I'm not expecting him to have the seasons that he did when he was maybe with Chicago, but I do expect, him to have a big season ahead. But then I was thinking a lot. This past season, he did play 1,000 career games in the NHL. 14th player in Blues history to dress wearing the blue note when taking the ice for their 1,000th game. And I think back to how cool that must have been. And the time that he had, I mean, you think back and he got drafted by the Minnesota Wild. And then he was in a trade to Chicago, won the cup, by the way, with Chicago, which Don't get me started on that one. Then he goes to the Islanders for quite a while, Detroit for a little bit, like not even, like maybe a little over half the season. Then he is here in St. Louis. So Nick Leddy is a Stanley Cup champion, has dressed in 1,000 games, and never played for the team he was drafted for, even though that was from his hometown, which is mind-boggling. But wow, Nick Leddy, what a guy. I just want to say this. It is probably one of the most crazy things ever for me to be happy about a player that won a championship with Chicago. But I am happy that Nick Leddy did win a Stanley Cup in his career. I think it's so cool that, we do have a cup champion on our team, despite the fact that he didn't win it with us. He did win it before, and I feel like, again, that really does help with motivating the younger players that have not won the Stanley Cup, which is crazy to say, right? But it has been 5 years since the Blues won. That maybe could inspire them and help them and motivate them, because he does know what it takes. I just want to put this on the record. I hate the Blackhawks, okay? Hate them. But what I will say about this Blackhawks team is that it did host Nick Leddy, who I do believe is a staple piece for this Blues defensive core. I do. I think back to a lot, about prime Nick Leddy. And in 2011, 2012, he was able to record 3 goals and 34 assists for a 37-point season, which was one of his best. I mean, then you look back at his time in New York, and in 2016 and 2017, 46-point season with 11 goals and 35 assists. Nick Leddy has yet to score more than 11 goals in a season. And, I look at his time here in St. Louis, and he scored, 2, 2, and 3. So last year was the most goals he's ever scored with 3 goals, but he was able to get 25 assists, putting up 28 points, which honestly, if you want to look back at it, the last time he ever had that many points was in 2017, 2018 with 42 points. Oh, no, I lied. It was 2020. Joking, with 31 points in New York. So Nick Leddy isn't a big points guy, a big pointsman, but he is a good playmaker, and he is solid on defense. And, I feel like he is still valuable to this team here in St. Louis. But a player like him, I talked a little bit earlier about how he kind of blends in, and I want to see him expand his playing. I want to see him be a little bit more aggressive. I want to see him just maybe add a little bit more speed. And, I'm not asking him to do a whole lot, but I just want him to do a little bit more that could potentially help the Blues succeed even further. I do have big expectations for him, okay? And I want him to do very well. Nick Leddy, though, I want to tell you about his contract, because this is the 2024-2025 season. He will be here next season, and then after that, at age 35, he'll be an unrestricted free agent. Here's the thing, and I want to be very blunt. Do I think that Nick Leddy is going to continue playing hockey after his contract is done here? I don't think so. Maybe a team will pick him up for a season, but I think it's going to be hanging up the skates for him. But again, I understand these players want to leave the ice when they are ready to leave the ice. So if Nick Leddy is not ready to leave the ice, I could see him maybe playing another year. Maybe the Blues extend him for a year. I don't really want that to happen, because I just want to see it young. But again, I understand that. Being said, Nick Leddy has 2 years left of his contract. If I were Nick Leddy, I would play my heart out. I would play so hard just so I could end my career on such a high note. I mean, not a lot of guys in the NHL can say that they won a Stanley Cup. And he did it very early in his career. But, let's be honest, it's been over 10 years ago. And I'm not saying that in a negative way, but it's kind of like you think about guys like a Robert Thomas or, a Jordan Bennington that won the cup early in their career. I mean, granted, they were rookies, but, they still need to have that motivation so they could potentially, try to get back there one day. I do respect Nick Leddy a lot, and I do expect big things from him, I just personally don't know if he's going to be our best option. Maybe if he's on the second pair. But on the other hand, he does have a lot of experience, so I do expect Nick Leddy to do big things this upcoming season, which I'm excited about. But I needed to talk about Nick Leddy. Besides the fish, I'm like, he's a good guy, and I didn't really talk about him this last season, and it's not Nick Leddy's fault. It's just that he blended in too much. Time to talk about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED highlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because of eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash, with all the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So, I'm a little bit annoyed. I am a little bit annoyed, and I'm going to be very blunt about it. I am beefing with the NHL. The NHL puts out this tweet, right? And, the tweet I'm a little excited about. There we go. It's the St. Louis Blues' schedule. Not schedule. It's the St. Louis Blues' what was it? Oh, well, the St. Louis Blues return to the Stanley Cup playoffs in this season. Here's the projected lineup. And let me tell you, this ruined my day. I was so mad. So I'm going to read you what they had. For forwards on the first, obviously, Robert Thomas centering. Then it was Pavel on the left and Kyrou on the right. I don't like that. This is what I'm saying. You're screwing it all up. Then the second line, it's Braden Shen. On the left is Neighbors, and on the right is Balduke. Then on the third, oh my God, it's Foxa, and then Sod on the left, and Joseph on the right. And then here is my beef. On the fourth, it's Sonny centering, Texier, and then Torpochenko. Where's Nathan Walker, you scumbags? I'm just saying. Then for defense, it is Nick Leddy, Colton Parayko, Suter, Falk, Krug, and Kessel. What? You were delusional, NHL. You were delusional, NHL. They really put Torrey Krug with a little apostrophe. Bro, he probably won't be playing. Let's be for real. He's probably done. You're going to have Suter on the second pair? Are you what the correct, projected lineup should have been is Nick Leddy, Colton Parayko, P.O. Joseph, Justin Falk, and then Suter and Kessel. And then in net, you have Binner and then Hofer. So at least I got that right. This was the worst projected lineup I've ever seen. So I literally made a tweet at Locked On Blues. And because honestly, that just annoyed me, the whole projected lineup. It was just trash. So I said, don't do this today. Because don't do this today. First, don't put out a lineup that's going to suck. So then Blake says, no, we're going to get worse. Goalies will come back to reality. And plus, our defense is bottom 5 in the league. And then Jay says, no, as long as we have Kyrou, we're not making the playoffs. That's crazy. So we have a bunch of responses. One from Haley T. Simon. Oh, wait, that's my own personal account. I said, they can't miss 3 consecutive seasons. Blues Moose cracked me up, says, not happening. K-Mac says they could. Justin Scott says, I think they'll make it. They barely missed the last season. I like how, literally everyone that's a Blues fan is yeah, no, this is probably not happening. And then people around the NHL are like, oh, no, it could happen. Krug is literally on LTIR, and they are waiting to see a status on him, and you're going to put him in the projected lineup? Like, bro, what? Like, I hate to be like this, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. Everyone's like, not a chance, not a chance. Maybe they pull off a trade. They will not make the playoffs. This is like kind of insane. Now they're putting up stats of Benner and like, I can't make this up. Like, the whole NHL is against St. Louis. And it's the NHL's fault for putting up this awful, awful projected lineup statistic. Like, there is no way. Somebody says maybe a final wild card. I mean, that's more realistic. But everyone's like, no, obviously no. LOL. Second to last in the Central. So mid. Bleep no. No, we're old and slow. The defense sucks. Bad defense. Nope, the city of St. Louis has stopped spending money on their sports teams. So, the NHL essentially purposely embarrassed the St. Louis Blues today. And that is my theory. That's where I'm coming at, because that is actually ridiculous. It is actually ridiculous how pathetic, and I'm saying this as nice as possible, how pathetic this projected lineup was. Now, if maybe they added PO to it, maybe they didn't even have Torrey Krug on it. Maybe they had Suter on, the third pair. Maybe they switched up what they do with the forwards, and they had maybe Dvorsky on the list. Like, there are so many possibilities that the NHL could have done, but instead they literally did the worst potential projected lineup. I would have loved to see Dvorsky on the second line, but that's like the problem, is that you're going to disrespect certain players. Like, you didn't find a way to put Walker in there. There's nothing with Tucker or Perunovich. I mean, and I know Matthew Kessel definitely has been playing well, but I'm like, that's all you're doing? Like, the NHL clearly doesn't know anything about the Blues. I mean, I'm sure they know about the Blues, but they don't know enough about the Blues to make a good projected lineup. It just doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. This Blues team deserves so much better than that awful, awful projected lineup. And then it's embarrassing because then people around the NHL, they're going to look at this lineup and think, oh, they have no young talent. When we really do have a lot of young talent, they just were not put on this list. And an article that was released on NHL.com literally came out last week about how Dvorsky wants to be on the team this season and thinks that he can do it. And you're not going to put him on the list. Okay, NHL. But instead, you're going to put Matthew Joseph on the list. Like, I'm not trying to be this person, but what are you doing? Why are you messing up my first line? And I was very happy with my first line. Then you're just messing it all up, NHL. Like, this is actually insanity. I think I could have made a better projected lineup. Like, I know a bunch of other podcasts, Blues podcasts, that do a very good job as well. They could have made a better one. I mean, you have this many people upset over your projected lineup because you absolutely fumbled the bag. You didn't try. You didn't add any players that actually can make a difference. And I like Sonny, but do we know he's 100% yet? No, we don't. I don't understand. I really am trying to think logically here about what the NHL did when they were making this projected lineup. I'm trying to understand. And they mess this up with other teams too. It's not just been St. Louis where the response has been like, what are you doing? This is awful. This has been a thing that they've been doing because they don't have good lineups. I mean, you're going to tell me the best having RT, Boosh, and Neighbors would have been the most ideal. I like Balduke, but you're going to put Neighbors and Balduke on the second line with Shen? Like, what are you doing? You have Foxa on the third line with Saad and Joseph. Like, are you trying to get us to lose? And then I get angry. I get really frustrated with how, honestly, this is bad. Like, they don't need Foxa. They don't need him to be as high up as they're putting him on the third line. It's just bad. Everybody else is saying it too. This is being set up. This is awful. Why are they doing this? Why are they putting Foxa up so high? It's not good. So I have beef with you, NHL. One-sided beef, but beef is beef. All right. Time to talk to you about somebody that I don't have beef with, which is FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much, and I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Right now, it is the Cardinals and the Chicago Cubs. And nothing crazy going on in this game. I mean, Cubs are leading 2-1 to the Cards, but the Cardinals are still chasing after being the first spot in the NL Central. They're like 6.5 behind the Brewers, but the Cards are continuously staying above 500. With the Pittsburgh Pirates close behind them too, so you have to be careful about that one. But I would take the Cardinals today, even though I believe at the moment I think they got on base. The game is happening now. But anywho, FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. Are we feeling blue? Was this a good week or a bad week for the St. Louis Blues? I'm going to say this was an okay week. I mean, nothing crazy happened this week besides Nick Leddy catching a fish. You know how embarrassing that is? Nothing really happened this week except for Nick Leddy catching a fish. I mean, honestly, like, I hate to be like, oh, well, that sucks, but at least it was something entertaining, right? It's better than nothing. I think that the Blues, though, they've been a little bit quiet this offseason, which I've talked to numerous people about. I don't like it. I like when there's excitement. I guess the biggest excitement you had this offseason had to deal with Kevin Hayes again. But I do feel like there has not been much kind of going on with the Blues, which is why it's a little bit boring. But I want the drama. I want the excitement. I don't want to be mad all the time. I feel like I'm going to be mad during the season, so I don't need to be mad now. And what I mean by that is, let's be for real. This season, we're going to be annoyed. Something is going to happen that's going to annoy us. Probably during training camp, probably with this lineup, probably something small that's going to end up being significant. I am very good at judging what a team should do and should not do. And I don't have much faith that they're going to come up with a better lineup than this NHL predicted lineup or projected lineup. Whatever the lineup is that the NHL came out with, don't do that. And I worry that that's going to happen. I have to tell you, as a fan, besides something that covers this team, as a fan of this team, I am frustrated beyond words. I do this podcast daily, and I always have these new thoughts, right? Because, that's what you do when you love something. You have numerous thoughts about it. And I'm always thinking to myself, why do I have a feeling that the Blues are going to miss the playoffs again this season? And I don't want that to happen. And I'm not trying to get that into speaking into existence, but I just don't feel confident that our coaching staff, our management is going to do what they need to do to get us to be a successful team again. I'm sick of playing from behind. I want to be a threat off the bat. So that's my thoughts. I guess I'm okay. I'm not feeling blue. I'm not feeling great. I'm just feeling neutrally annoyed, which is how it's going to be until they prove me wrong, because the taste of last season is still very much so bitter in my mouth. All right. I will talk to you on Monday. And like always, let's go Blues.